So, welcome everybody once again to the Good Future Foundation tent at the Festival of Education at Wellington College. My name is Daniel Emerson. I'm the Executive Director of Good Future Foundation, and I'm joined by two remarkable guests today to help us think through responsible use of AI from the perspective of sustainability. Anna, if I could start with you, it would be great if we could just have an idea as to what your role entails, and yeah, a bit of background on some of the work that you do in this space.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm Ana Romero, Head of Sustainability here in Wellington College, and recently appointed um, Head as well of Global Climate Education. So that's for Wellington College and Wellington College International, which is the entity that works very much with investors to open the branding of Wellington around the world. So my responsibilities are very much student face. And I've been in Wellington College working for the last 10 years, really pushing the agenda of sustainability and climate education, because we consider that sustainability is not a sustainability club or an eco club anymore. There is a need to really have this subject really embed and a culture around the college. And we are replicating this example very much with our Wellington family, where we are trying to build the culture of this concept to be around students. For the last years, we have really focused in developing a strong agency in students about these global issues, where they are driven by the interests. So, education for sustainable development has been the main methodology we have been using, where teachers we become the facilitators of that learning, and where they are keen in discovering the world with their own eyes and really learn about it, but with that sense that they are really proposing and innovating about the different topics they want to talk about. So they use, in the case of Wellington College, they use this place as their laboratory. So there has been a very close collaboration with different entities in the college. So the sustainability is not only one person, it's everyone. So usually they understand that through system thinking. And when they relate themselves with the states versa, for example, for data about energy, and then discovering what is the carbon footprint. But above all, they don't stay with that idea that, oh my God, this is amazing and really big, and what can I do as a young person? They really go ahead proposing ideas and really moving forward those, till the point that at the moment we have OWs that are our alumni coming back and saying, "Oh, this was very helpful for my future choice in in careers." And talking about specifically about AI, we have really worked hard in trying to find the ethical way to use this for innovation, for example. How this great technology can help us really, as educators, to really guide the way for them to really find alternatives and ideas that they can implement. And some of my students have been creating apps as part of this in our sustainability program. So there are some great initiatives, such as, for example, measuring how much food waste are you having through the apps that they are creating and prototypes of these apps. So I think it's a great way for them to experience hands-on sustainability within the classroom, but also outside.
How much do you think, Jim, on your side, we might be able to learn from some of the work that's happening, particularly in the independent sector here, and apply it more broadly, perhaps across state sector in the UK?
Look, there's so much that we can learn. The independent sector, domestically and internationally, they don't have the same constraints in terms of they don't have a national curriculum, they don't have the same regulatory constraints. They're not free of constraint altogether. They have to be responsive to parents and to exam boards and to university admissions officers. Those are essentially the three that they're grappling with. So I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to innovate. And seeing some of that innovation and how, some in the independent, and Anna's set out what they're doing here at Wellington, but others are doing around, at Atlantic College at one of the United World Colleges in West Wales. The course that they're doing in collaboration with the IB around system leadership is really exciting in terms of a 16 to 19 program that is very ambitious academically, but it's giving young people the world's problems to solve and connecting them with alumni, connecting them with experts in the adult world to help them do some of the deep thinking around how you might be able to go about solving some of those problems. And obviously, sustainability is right at the core of that work. That's just one example. And I could point to others around and about where there is proper innovation happening and where we in the state sector need to be open to going and having a look and sometimes finding freedom where we don't think the freedom exists. So there are a few innovators now in the state sector who are saying, we don't actually have to have kids take all those GCSEs. We could take 1 or 2 out and do an HPQ, so do that lower level of project-based qualification, so that they could take a deep dive, for example, into some of these topics. They're still valued by universities, and they're a great precursor to an EPQ, which are hugely valued by universities. That sort of innovation's straightforward enough, and yet we're all feeling a bit nervous about doing it because of what Ofsted might say, or all of those other things.
Just to follow up on that, because it sounds like a great way for a school, perhaps not in the independent sector, to address some of the amazing work that Anna has been doing here. What might be a first step, or how do they gain that level of confidence in order to make those decisions?
Well, I think finding those who are already doing it, and a good starting point is to go to Big Education, who convene a lot of those conversations.
Big Education, the Multi-Academy Trust.
The Multi-Academy Trust. I'm not saying that they're doing all of the innovation, they're doing some, but they convene a lot of the conversation. So then they're a good source of knowing who's doing what. And just gain some confidence from what others are doing, where they're kind of saying, well, let's go where the rules don't apply. The national curriculum doesn't prescribe every hour of the day. There is time. It's hard to see, but the reality is there. And then if you say, okay, yeah, we don't have to do 12. Kids could do 8 GCSEs, wouldn't really make much difference. And then find some more time that way and some resource, because, if there's a funded qualification at the end of it, you still got the funding. So, yeah, find the space and get on with it.
Is there a space, Anna, you mentioned technology in terms of some apps that students are developing. Is there a specific role for AI or with AI in the work that you're doing? And if so, what does that look like at the moment?
It's not really specific. It has been really much about, as I said, driven by the interest of students, and they have come with those ideas. We got to collaborate at that time with a company that was really incentivizing this in students. As I say, we are trying to motivate them to use AI in an ethical way, where they say, I create this prototype or this idea enhanced with AI, therefore this is the result. But every time we see more and more interest, so absolutely, I think it's going to be a point in which we're going to be having it integrated fully, and we will be supporting them. However, I back up very much what Jim is telling about the system, how is it working. Most of these initiatives are sitting within the co-curriculum, and therefore it seems that in the eyes of students and sometimes of parents, they lack the interest or the support to really enhance that education. The co-curriculum has lots to offer and to complement the curriculum in really building those competencies and skills that students will need at the moment they leave these schools and they go to universities or colleges or whatever they decide. And it is very important that this integration, even with technology, is visualized within the curriculum, within the real scoring that they get to have at the end when they are presenting these results for academics.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the challenge that we confront when they are experiencing these new or these ideas about, in my case, for example, climate literacy and sustainability, because we lack that qualification that is not within the curriculum. And I think there has been lots of discussion about that, how much this sits within the typical subjects such as geography, such as biology, and so on and so forth. The IB has been a great ally, I would call it, because they have seen now that sustainability is part of this. And I think we need to advance really about what the offering of technology is giving us now, yeah, and really promote that in the education field.
And I can't ask you, when you're thinking about the use of AI tools and sustainability, obviously there's a lot of discussion about the amount of energy that AI and the data farms and so on are using. There's obviously a really important place for AI for good and helping us solve some of these climate change problems. But how do you sort of square that off and educate for responsible use of AI and not the frippery of, what would my mum look like if she were a dog kind of AI?
Yes, I fully agree with that. There must be a balance. And what we get to visualize, for example, is that the contact with nature is very important to balance all of that.
Yeah.
And for example, in my programs, the first thing we do is that we go out all over around here, that we are very lucky to have lots of forests. And we spend the time reflecting what nature brings us. What are the roots of being humans, again, interacting without the technology. So I consider that this is a very important balance, and precisely realizing that at the end, all these technologies are requiring more energy, therefore there is more carbon emissions, and therefore my carbon footprint as an individual when I'm using them has a very strong impact in society. So thanks to carbon literacy, for example, the students realize that, and they are certificating carbon literacy when they are finishing this. Therefore, when they are using Google or other, I'm sorry if I'm mentioning this kind of brands, but they realize that it has an impact. That every time they may use these AI platforms, they will have an impact. They never thought of that before, but then they realize that when we are in touch with nature, I'm more sensible about my impact, about what's happening around me. So definitely we educate them about that. And at the end, I think it's very much about the individual when they become and they discover what they're going to thrive about and discover as individuals.
There's also a piece in there around the value of using that technology and ensuring that when it is used, it's done with purpose. To your point, Jim, around the perhaps less practical uses of AI. So I'm interested when you're talking about the ethical use. Is that part of the co-curricular programming that you incorporate? I'm asking because Jim and I had a conversation earlier around AI literacy and disinformation in particular. And I'm wondering if that's an area that you're also touching on here.
Yes, absolutely. We start very much about getting to know ourselves and how do we feel about these global issues, for example. And is basically to understand if they are feeling sad, happy, emotional. So we want to discover how they are feeling first. And then from there, we move to say, okay, if you were going to be using AI to enhance those ideas that you may have in positive way, to change attitudes towards these topics, is really, really essential for us. It's something that we really take seriously because what we find is that lots of students can really hide their emotions uh, through the use of AI to find the best way to phrase what they want to say and not really reflect what they are feeling inside. And for us, it's really important because sometimes in the classroom, they may show apathy, they may show lack of engagement, but the reality is that they are feeling anger, that they are feeling frustration, that they are feeling fear to discover all of this. And for us, it's really important to identify as educators, where is my student standing in this topic? And I don't want to hear the beautiful words that AI may give you for that idea of about what you feel. So for us, it's really that those ethics, starting from the person, from the individual again, and what we always try to transmit with this is that there is hope, that the things are not looking as bad and that there is always a hope that we can improve our life quality as society. And the first book we give them is called Factfulness from Rosling, because the facts is what we need to see to then evaluate what we are doing. And then they realize that, okay, we have high expectations that this can improve. And obviously, is the use of ethics in behind that.
There were some interesting examples brought to us from Thomas Sparrow, who isn't able to join us today, but who does a lot of work in this space. And one of the issues that he's faced when working with schools is, I wouldn't say climate change denial, but along those lines, which he's found is being reinforced by AI
Yeah.
in different ways. Of course, you can find disinformation around this that's not AI generated, but the amplification of this disinformation around this is having a real impact on what can be taught in the classroom. So, Jim, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on how better we might be able to prepare teachers, particularly to address issues relating to sustainability, the climate, when we're thinking through the implications that might have in a science lesson, for instance.
Yeah, look, I think part of the tension that teachers are dealing with is if they, as and when they dive really deeply into this, and I've just come from listening to Mike Berners-Lee talking about those. It's easy to end up in quite a dark place. It's easy to end up in a place where you say, well, we're at or beyond a tipping point, and the Earth will never recover, and it all looks very bleak and dark and hopeless. And I think teachers themselves need to feel like they can confidently talk about this and feel hopeful. And I've recently read a book by Ezra Klein and David Thompson called Abundance, which is very popular in US political circles anyway, and a bit here. And that's, it sets out an alternative view, which essentially says science is the way that we achieve progress. The science has already shown us how to generate an abundant amount of energy sustainably through capturing, all energy comes from the sun ultimately, but we can capture the energy from the sun directly through solar. We can capture it through what the sun does to wind and air movements through wind power. And then obviously there's nuclear as well. So there is an energy mix which is sustainable. We just have to build it. With enough energy, we know how to grow vertically. We know how to create more food scientifically. We know how to desalinate water. The Israelis do that extensively already. So if we solve the energy problem, which science has already done, we can start to solve some of the other problems. We now have viable electric cars. We are yet to find a viable, sustainable source of concrete, but that's a scientific challenge that's next. And so let's put a lot of hope and focus on science and technology, motivate children to learn about science and technology, and motivate them that is where hope lies. The creative subjects are really important for giving them humanity. The humanities are really important for giving them analysis and balance around what's going on in the world. Science is about creating a progressive future, and it can be a future of abundance. It doesn't have to be a future of scarcity.
Anna, just one final question for you, if I may. I'm picking up on some of Jim's points from earlier on around what teachers, perhaps outside of the independent sector, might be able to do, picking up on these messages of hope as well, and aspiration for what might be achieved moving forward. Is there any work either that you're doing insofar as collaborating beyond the reaches of the schools, outward collaboration, community work, where you're sharing knowledge and experiences with teachers in particular?
Yes, absolutely. We are all the time keen in partnerships, in collaboration. We are part, and we are at the moment having strong participation and motivating other schools to be part of our Berkshire Schools Eco Network. So it's independent schools, it's state schools, and we gather together as a platform where we give voice to students to decide whatever they want to work on or discuss or simply from teachers, the perspective is meeting, discussing what has been successful, this has been all right, let's collaborate. Or students. So we get to meet once per term, and we organize events together. So
Teachers find this platform, sorry?
in Berkshire School Psycho Network, BSEN. So they can see it online and they can drop an email, and then we say the next meeting is going to happen this day. You are welcome to come with your students. And we meet online as well, so it's virtual and face to face. And we get to organize different events that are for students, for example, that simply in the past we have had the eco tournament, and this eco tournament was a day of competition about energy this time, and the school that was the winner won £500 to collaborate together to build a project together. And it was a great school in Bracknell, a state school, who won. And we did that regionally and did with different schools, and we did it internationally. So it has been a great experience. Also, internationally, we are collaborating and very keen in learning about what others are doing. So we did the international intergenerational climate and sustainability dialogues series together by the hand by the Institute of Global Learning, where for the first time, and it was a great experience because we followed the example of pacts, where we promote the dialogue between teachers and their students, but in the same level. It was not about I'm the teacher, you are the student, and this activity is for you. It's about really to get to know each other. And now we are getting the memories of that experience. And this was led by students 100%, inviting other students. So now the next phase is going to be promoting dialogue in between teachers to replicate this experience in their schools and in their environments. Because for us, it's essential that intergenerational equity becomes a part of the teaching style that we have in our schools, where we see learning from these young people from kindergarten to the ones that are also almost leaving and the ones that have left. It's essential for us to have that interaction about these topics around all the subjects that are related to sustainability and climate.
Sounds like excellent work, and I'm sure we'll be able to share some of those resources with the community as well. Thank you both ever so much for your
Thank you.
time and engagement as always.
Thank you.